Welcome everyone to a stream, as well as this will be on YouTube, where I will be showcasing a new Minecraft map concept I've been working on for probably about a month now, just getting the fine details. So the idea of the map is that it's a parkour course. However, the entire parkour course moves. Like it doesn't stay still. It keeps going. So I'll just show you what I have done, and I will show you a few clips of me actually succeeding, because it is quite difficult. It is really, really, really difficult. And I only have one of the map levels that I think would be easy done. But here, I'll just show you, and then I'll explain how it works. I just realized I forgot to change one thing, but it doesn't affect the experience as long as I don't touch the mouse here. You can see the level comes out of the garage. This Minecraft map will not be for light computers, just due to how I decided to make it. It's very, very processor intensive, hardware intensive, just because of lighting updates and slime blocks flying and like a whole bunch of stuff. Pistons firing, water moving, block updates, and everything. So you can see it brings you down here. Your inventory would be empty. If in the actual map, this is just a proof of concept. So you start out by going up the stairs. I'll have explained this in either a tutorial level or maybe just a book or something, or a cinematic tutorial or something. That's a great start. But you can see, I might have to turn down the game volume because of the pistons. I think I'm gonna do that real quick. Okay. I'm not sure how well you can hear me in the video, so just being careful. So basically, you can see you can climb. Okay, I usually do better than this, and I'm not very good at parkour, but I normally do better than this. So as I said before, climb the stairs. They get to the top. So the goal in all the levels that I will eventually make is to get to the diamond block. You'll be able to, at least I hope you'll be able to see the diamond block when the level is first flying out of the garage every time, so you'll know where to get to. Your goal is both to figure out how to get there and actually do it through the parkour. For demonstration, I'm just going to make this easier. Yeah, I normally do better than this. Admittedly, I normally don't do very well, but it's still better than this. You can see you can make it over here. There we go. And this is the hardest thing of the entire thing. The hardest jump of the entire course is to get onto that. But I have done it. If I do this real quick, give me just a second. I will. Okay, let's try that again. I don't know if anyone's in the stream. Nope, that's not it. I did a few tests before I got this one working. There we go, 8 minute. Somewhere in here I actually make it. So that's what I'm trying to show. Oh wait, you can't actually see the video yet, so there you go. I will make it so that you can see it. And right, this might take a few moments. Sorry for watching this on YouTube. I'm trying not to do editing on this. I just think it looks better. Window capture, add source. I want it to be this one. And if I did this right, this should make it so that if I do this, I select this and that. Sorry, I'm figuring this out live. Okay, for some reason this doesn't want to work. Okay, so when I edit this later, I'll put the video clip in to the YouTube video. However, for now, just trust me, please, that I just trust me that I definitely managed to do it after a lot of tries, but I did manage to do it. So I managed to get bounced onto here and then keep going. The elevator itself is an obstacle because it tends to glitch you out at the top. I did pretty well this time, but as you can see, it's still challenging. But I have tested this whole thing. It is possible start to finish. Trust me on that, please. And then eventually you'll be able to get back here. This is the final obstacle that I did not do too well on. This is usually a pretty easy one. It's just you have to learn to time it right and teleports you back to the beginning. So now that I have that demonstration, I'll explain why that iron block line is there later. But if I fly way over here, you can see the level's still here, just floating. It's stopped, it isn't actually moving anymore. But yeah, this is what the level looks like. This is the engine back here. I used an old style engine because it moves slower than the one I would have used, and I learned that the elevator over there does not work at high speeds. It blew up and splashed water all over all my circuits, so I had to redo it. Ooh, I never noticed that when you put the obsidian there, it opens. I think that's due to unloaded chunks. But luckily, since you're never going back to here, it's not important. But anyway, so it stops. It waits. Anyway, I guess I should probably explain how all this is working now. So, yeah, I haven't actually planned this video out at all. So, I think I'll start with the machine itself, and probably start where I started, which is this jump. This is the very first thing that I did, is that extremely difficult jump. And it gets pushed along by this piston, which moves both this line, which is the one that you jump off of. By the way, this jump is quite a bit easier. Okay, so I can't do it, but it's quite a bit easier when it isn't moving. And that also moves this piston, which pushes the entire rest of the platform here. The elevator is a separate entity, but the separate system, but the path is all this system here. I came up with this design. Somebody else has definitely done it before, but I came up with this design off the bat for how to make the pathway expandable. Also, you can see I'm in 1.15.1 I'm using honey blocks. Without them, it would be a lot more difficult to do all this, and it probably wouldn't look nearly as good. So, the next thing that I did, or at least the next thing that I started doing, was working on the stairs here. So, I guess, no, I can't demonstrate it because if I do that, it'll break the whole thing. Actually, I can demonstrate it over here. Also, explain everything else that this does later. But for now, I'm going to simulate this so you can see that it stopped here. And in this one, I can demonstrate what this is doing. So, if I allow this to move one step, you'll be able to see what the stairs do here. Just sort of a cascade down, which I think looks really cool. But I'm using the honey blocks again, super useful. The only problem with honey blocks I've discovered is that they're transparent, so you can't, whereas for slime blocks you can, put this observer, say, here, are there, and it would work exactly the same way. Honey blocks, that block would be transparent, so it doesn't actually work. No signal gets through. So I had to make this a little bit smaller than it originally was. Anyway, now the next thing I worked on was the elevator. I actually came back to the stairs again later and redesigned them, but the next thing I worked on was this elevator here. And wow, this took a long time to design. It's harder than I originally thought it would be. Because it's movable, I had to make it using waterlogged somethings, and trapdoors were the only thing that I could find that also, made it so I didn't need quite as many blocks and a bunch of other advantages there. But the big one is that the player can fit in a 1 block space with the waterlogged trapdoors. But the waterlogging brought the next challenge, which was that if you waterlog a trapdoor and push it with a piston, it gets rid of the water. If you use a sticky piston to push it, it gets rid of the water. And if you use a sticky piston to pull it, it gets rid of the water. The only way you can push that is with a 1-tick pulse from the sticky piston. That works. If you use a normal piston, 1-tick pulse does not work, as you can see here. So once I discovered that, I needed to figure out a way to make it so that I push these with a 1-tick pulse and then move the pistons, not the other way around like it normally would be, because if I moved the pistons forward and then pushed it, the water would spill out all over down past the pistons and everything would be horrible. So I had to work around that. I'll get to this part later. The way that I made it so that it pushes so that it triggers the pistons and then moves them is I have 2 systems basically almost touching in here. The first one is this sort of every other alternating row, just alternating observers, that when they get pushed forwards onto against these blocks, it triggers the pistons with 1-tick pulse. That's how I got that. That just had to be pushed by all of this, and then all of this back here is timing, which I'll explain in a moment. Then the second part is move the pistons forward, which I discovered that I can move the pistons forward with the sign blocks and the other block here right against them, so it was much easier to do that. It was just a lot of these units. I did my best to make it expandable. I think it is. It would just get a lot longer, and there is some improvising needed. So this thing is also just a lot of making sure the timings are all the same and making sure everything's under the 12 block limit, which is a big challenge. But then once you get back here, this unit here, this one, is all timing. Because in order for this to work, I need this system to move to trigger the pistons. A couple ticks later, 1 piston extension later, I need to move this forward to push that. And before all of that, I need to trigger this system, which is what I'll explain now. This system is what moves the blocks here along, which I use trapdoors because I discovered that if these are solid blocks, when it was moving, it would glitch you out reliably every time, and you couldn't actually use the elevator. This one at least gives you a chance, and also I think it kind of looks kind of cool. But you can see I'm just using alternating sign block and honey block, which is really useful. I'm really glad that they added honey blocks to the game. I really like them. Give me just a moment. Okay, that's better. But this one, I'm actually pulling them along because I couldn't fit it here, and beside it just looked bulky, and I was trying to fit it within a nice profile so that I could use it other places. So what I did is I made it so that these get pushed forward, these slime block rows here, and this pulls the sticky pistons back and then triggers them so it pulls these back with it. So basically, I am making a system just to demonstrate here. Helps if I actually have the slime block in my inventory. Give me just a moment. I apparently got rid of the piston. Guess I know I did a bit of a waste there. But, wow, I really did get rid of everything from working on this. I did not think I had cleared out my inventory that much. Anyway, so pretend that didn't happen. That's not how it works. But basically, what this does is it allows me to chain backwards just as easily as forward. You can see it just pushes it along. Redstone block, redstone block. I accidentally lost my redstone block again. And you can see that that just always comes with it. And using that, I can actually chain a whole bunch together, which I don't know if I used it at all in this case, but I definitely will consider using it in later things. But as you can see, doing it this way allows me to chain backwards. And that's what I used to get those last pieces to pull back instead of push. That's these pieces. And those are connected in a similar way with, you know, paired pistons and some bars connecting them to slowly make them into one line, which is this one. And then this block, I guess you could say from like this angle through here around to here, is all timing to make sure that this goes first, immediately after the sticky pistons trigger with their one tick pulse, and then immediately after that, the pistons get moved forward. Now all of this is pushed from over here, which I have redone a couple times because of just how I wanted to make the ending work here. I needed to figure out a way to somewhere to put the diamond block, and I kind of liked it being kind of near the beginning. Yeah, and that's just, you can see the system pretty easily. I'm just pushing, oop, you can't see my finger. I'm just pushing the entire thing along, as well as just using that. Now, the engine here is just a simple Caterpillar engine with an updater right here. That's one of the first, maybe the first slime block engine that was made ever. So, anyway, and then we get to these things. Now, my goal for this was to make it so that no matter how far you went on the level, it could just keep going. So even if you unloaded these beginning chunks here at the garage, it would still, everything would function correctly. So, to do that, I needed to make all of the commands mobile. There's actually multiple minecarts in each of these spots, or actually there's only one here, but there's multiple minecarts in each of these spots that govern mainly, well, I think all of them in some way, except for three, rely on here. Also, you can probably hear that sound. What I'm doing to detect when the player gets to that diamond block, I have an invisible, and it isn't there in this one, but in the actual final product that gets cloned over there, it does work. There's an invisible bee. You can hear it if I punch it. That also has no AI, so it can't move around. And all I'm doing, what the original reason that these three existed, this one kills the existing bee, which it has a special name so that I can identify it. This one is end one. This one spawns a new one in the new location. This is every time it moves forward. So this one it kills the old bee that is behind by one. This one spawns a new one on the block. And then this one, the third one here, has a whole bunch of stuff that used the execute command. I really wish test for still existed, but I'm using the execute command. And through a whole bunch of shenanigans with that, I'm executing at the bee and checking for names and if the distance to the nearest player is less than or is one or is one block, then set the obsidian in this case, which stops this whole thing. But there's a bunch of other stuff that happens too, like the teleport, and there's just a couple other things. One that was failed, but I haven't removed yet because it doesn't actually do anything. Now, the other things that I have here, and mainly in this one, because I wanted it to be an infinite, I needed to make it so that it built walls in front of you. And also I needed to make it so that if you sprint ahead of the machine, you can't just, run out of the map. So I am doing this. Oh yeah, and I also, in case you reset the level, or what I want to do is I want to make it so you can make multiple levels come out of that same garage every time. I had to make it so I delete these old ones, which I will now demonstrate. Give me a moment to restart this. So every time it moves, it fills this whole area with lava. It had to be lava in order for me to be able to get rid of the minecarts, because just, filling it with blocks, it doesn't get rid of them. So it fills it with lava, then it fills it with bricks right behind it to clear up the lava. Then it fills it with air after that. But I specifically made it so that the air only goes to here, so it leaves the wall. And you can see how that kind of just keeps going. That's moving in sync with this. You can see it moving. Also, a little subtlety here. It wasn't intentional, but because I'm killing the bee every time it moves, it makes this steam train smoke trail off the back that looks better from the top. But it's interesting. But you can see how every time it moves, it's cloning in this wall. And in a moment, you'll be able to see how it actually gets rid of the minecarts and machines. Also, because of the way they made it, because of the speed, the lava never flows unless you start or stop the machine. But you'll be able to see in just a moment how first the lava eats the minecarts as well as deletes the blocks, and then the bricks delete the lava, and then the air deletes the bricks. It's the 3 stages here. You can see it eats the machine, which I think also looks really cool, although you'll never actually see it in the map. So anything that's here before, also this is way oversized because I'm planning on making every single level be able to fit within, probably the last one would be huge, to be able to fit within a 32 by 32 by 64 area. So 32 wide by 32 tall by 64 long, because I'm using structure blocks to clone this in, which I'll explain in a moment. But you can see how it just ate that whole thing. And I am now going to stop this. Also, isn't it fun just to, bounce along? Okay, I didn't actually bounce that time, but there. I've stopped now. Anyway, next thing is how I'm cloning the machines in and starting them. The machine is saved in the structure block, actually 2 structure blocks. I believe I called it moving level 1 front and back. Yes, you can see that. And it's always 32 by 32 by 32 because, as I said, it's 32 by 32 by 64 total. And the relative position is because I accidentally moved it while I was building it. So that's just to compensate. And you can see the second one here meshes up exactly, so it's the second half from level 1 back. And what I was saying, I kind of forgot to keep saying this, but I've saved the machine in a way so that when you clone it in, it tries to go forward and then it doesn't, so it doesn't actually move at all. But when you move the obsidian, it updates it and the entire thing moves. So that I saved it specifically like this. And also I have one other obsidian in here, just due to a problem. This is actually similar to what I was doing over here. I'm pulling backwards instead of pushing. So, but the problem with that is when you clone it in, if you don't have an immovable object, like obsidian here, it triggers, and then when it moves forward, it can't grab it, and you leave it behind, and the whole thing crashes. It took me forever to figure out that this was the problem here, but anyway. So it's saved with those to stop it from moving. And then once it's cloned in, the first thing it does, I still don't know what causes this, but when I spawn it in without these command blocks, which I'll explain in a moment, water spills out all over the place. What these are doing is first using red stained glass because I think it looks cool to replace the trapdoors, and then these three replace the trapdoors. So you can see right here, the command basically replaces this column down to there, and then puts it back with the bottom facing trapdoors and filling the upwards trapdoors there. That's those command blocks. Also, something I discovered recently, I really should have known it before, but I didn't. You can load commands on redstone signal. Guess it makes sense, I just didn't think about it the first time. Anyway, so I just have repeaters here to get the signal to everything. And then this is the second thing that happens, or actually no, this is the fourth thing that happens, but the second major thing, it deletes the obsidian that I mentioned before, the second obsidian, the one not the engine, because at this point it has already updated the piston and it hasn't moved, so it can be removed. And then this one is the last thing that happens. You can see it's 4 ticks rather than 3. It deletes that obsidian block that I mentioned before, right near the engine here, and deleting that updates this piston here and starts the entire thing moving. So that's the chain of events here. And then over here, inside the garage, I actually have exactly the same system. Also, it's really dark, but I always have it on peacefuls, and that's my plan for the whole map, so I don't need to worry. I have exactly the same system, it's just I cleaned it up a bit, made it a bit flatter. But it's, all the redstone is wiring is precisely the same, except for this little bit right here, which I'll also explain in a moment. But that just does exactly the same system as spawning and starting. I might have... Yeah, I did adjust the timing for the start so that it spawns, waits, and then starts to wait for the door to open on the garage. Which, speaking of opening, that's the next thing I want to talk about. When you spawn in the machine at first level, it also triggers this, which is the garage door, and I can demonstrate how this works real quick using this. Is a bunch of fill commands in the command blocks that go all the way up and fill 2 rows of the iron blocks with air and open the door. Anyway, so that's the door. Fairly simple. There's something behind that wall that I'll mention in a moment, but not quite yet. Actually, no, I am going to mention that because this is the most complicated part other than the flying machine itself. Also, I feel like I'm rambling a little bit, but sorry about that. I'm trying not to, but I really like this contraption, and when I like something, I tend to put way too much detail into what I'm explaining. So what happens is the control system that I'll show last over there, at the correct time, which is actually the very first thing it does, sets the redstone block on top here, which I'll demonstrate what that actually ends up doing by doing this. What it does, this clears out the area here, the first area, because in the unlikely scenario that like you launch the level and either immediately win, which I think somebody would have to cheat to do that, or you have to restart level, which I'll implement a restart item in the future. I need to be able to clear it out because, as I demonstrated before, the machine is setting those the wall of stuff quite a bit out in front of it. I believe it's 80 blocks in front of it. So that's what this iron bar is marking. This is the point that the flying machine starts setting blocks. So anywhere before this, if there's something here, it won't be cleared by the flying machine. So this system over here, to demonstrate again, this time a little bit better, so you can actually see the whole thing. Clears the whole thing and also the minecarts. Let's see if I can get on top fast enough to show you this. It spawns this wall of lava that sweeps all the way along, and basically the player gets teleported up here. The cinematic thing at the beginning is from here. It sets you to spectator mode and holds you here. When you get teleported there, the lava is approximately here, so it's a little bit behind you. But in that time, it finishes clearing the level. I worked hard at getting those timings perfect. Anyway, also the 2 rows of command blocks here are, this first one spawns the lava in the right spot, then the second row spawns the air in the same location. So, let's see. Alright, patch that one up. Also, the extra little bit of wall here is because when you get teleported, I can never find it, there it is. When you get teleported here, it teleports you approximately like that angle. And without that extra wall there, you'll be able to see all of the test stuff and extra plane all around it, and it just doesn't look good. I do think that the stuff on the bottom looks like it is a garage though, so I think that's completely fine. Anyway, so now, the really redstone-y part, and timings. This system is what governs all of the spawning in and showing the level and clearing and all of that up until a point where the machine actually, like, you get teleported down and you start doing the parkour. You trigger it with this button, which eventually I'll make much fancier, but this is still in testing phase. First thing it does, as I said, this places the redstone block on top of the command block on the other side to clear the level. And this right here is the delay so that you get teleported up after the lava is behind you. Or behind the player. I'm not sure if you're the one playing. So, moment. There we go. Okay, and then immediately after that, it does 2 things. I'm trying to remember what they are. Oh yeah, it gives you resistance, which lasts forever, so it only needs to happen once, but just for safety, I do it every time. This is to make sure, because you can pretty easily be launched in different directions and you fall a lot. I don't want the player to die in the level, so I just give them resistance that makes sure that they can't take any fall damage. And I tested this by teleporting myself 2 million blocks in the air and watching a movie while I let my character fall, and I didn't take any fall damage, so I think I have enough resistance. And by the way, it took the 3.5 hours to fall at that distance. That's with a crash in the middle, but that crash only lasted a couple minutes, so that's pretty good. Anyway, and then this one, this set block, redstone block, sets the redstone block over here, which triggers that whole system that I was explaining before, the spawning in mechanism with the obsidian block removal and all of that. After that's triggered, it this is fun to make. It sets an RS neural latch here. This latch, basically, if I'm assuming if you're watching this, you know how it works. But if you don't, an RS neural latch is you set it, you trigger one side. Actually, I'm just gonna build one real quick over here to demonstrate, in case you don't know. RS neural latch. You set it to a value, and it doesn't change until you set it to another value. So, in this case, I'm using it as a timer, but it can be used for a lot of different things, memory, all that. But you can see, if I press that, it'll set it, and if I keep pressing it, it'll stay set. However, when I press the other one, it'll reset. Same thing. So, fairly simple circuit, super useful. In this case, the first thing it does here, like once it reaches the timing part, it sets the arsenal latch, which turns this off. So basically, it's preparing this for the next round, which I'll explain what those do again later. And it also, this is the one that was supposed to be a repeat command block. It teleports the player, repeating until the timer's gone, to that barrier block that I showed you before. And also sets your head to the right angle and all of that. So it's that block. It teleports you there. Of course, the barrier had to be there because if it wasn't, you sort of like jitter in the air and it doesn't look very good. So I had to use a barrier as well, which required some fancy coordinate things. I had to find the right value and everything. Anyway, so this top one just sets it to spectator mode using a chain, so that one's fairly simple. Anyway, so now there's delay into here. These things are amazing. They're pulse extenders using comparators, which I'm not going to talk about in detail because I feel like they're pretty simple as long as you try to understand them. But basically, you put the signal, and it just very slowly, you can see on the side here, under targeted block, power, you can see that slowly ticks down. And if you take an output from this comparator here, using a repeater, it's a super, super good delay machine. Now, I did have to use a bit of fancy stuff to make it work correctly, but nothing too bad. Basically, what happens here is when I originally power this on, it turns this off, and then once it turns off, it turns this thing on, which is basically the output of the delay. It's like having a whole bunch of repeaters through here. The only difference is that this one, the pulse is the full length rather than just a short pulse after time. I'm not going to go into that much, but you can think about it. I think you can understand it if you think about it for a few minutes. Now over here, because as I said, this extends the pulse to the entire length of that time, I have it into a pulse shortener here to change it to 4-tick pulse. And then to this thing, which is I wish I knew about this when I first started using comparators. It is a really compact pulse extender that doesn't extend the pulse that much, but it's enough. You can see if I trigger this, that pulse stays on for a lot longer than it would if it was just the button. So what I'm doing here is, what I discovered is that just this, it actually makes this into a clock that slowly runs out. So I extended the pulse to make sure it fills up all of these comparators. Actually, I can demonstrate that effect too, real quick. Sorry, I still feel like I'm rambling, but again, I don't know how to stop myself from doing that. So, whereas this one, with the button, it stays on. Let's speed this up a bit. It's like doing that. You'd see it's a clock and it pulses, and that would be horrible for what I'm doing. So the pulse extender makes the pulse long enough to not cause that problem. And then I have another 2 of those just to get enough delay, because it needs to be delayed until you can't see the tailing end of the machine. With larger ones, you will be able to see the tailing end, but basically it's just the garage doors have to be able to close before you get teleported down. And that's what all this delay is for. Once it goes over here, I already explained what happens there. So, when the pulse gets here, it turns off the latch that I discussed earlier, which turns this back on, which teleports the player down, looking at the garage as it closes. It puts you in adventure mode, so that you can't break blocks. I'm just going to have in the rules you aren't allowed to flip trapdoors, things like that, unless specified. So I might include something like you're allowed to flip, like, spruce trapdoors, but not oak or something. Just because it would break the elevator if I let them flip it. So I need to do something about that. and then it goes through here, through here. I don't even remember what this part does. Oh yeah, and then that fills in the garage door again. It replaces them all with iron blocks, which, speaking of which, I haven't done that yet, so I'm just gonna, give a false trigger here. There, it's back. Okay, so that's the whole system. It's super rambly, but as I said, you can probably stop for a few moments and think about it, and it'll be completely understandable. Also, I can't show you those signs. That's a reminder for myself. I don't need those. This is just my notes, but I can't show you what's on those signs because it's, personal information. So actually, what I'm going to do, let's see. There. No risk. Okay, I'll fix that later after the video. But I believe that was the whole concept. In the future, I will try to make more levels and possibly, make this one easier. Also, I just made a mistake. Never have water in your hot bar. Anyway, so yeah, I don't know how to wrap this up. That's the whole thing. But yeah, so on YouTube, I will be posting an 8-minute clip of just me trying to. Actually, I might edit it into this video of me trying to do the level and getting all of the components, just so you can see that I am not lying. That actually is the case. And yeah, so at this point I'm just talking because I don't know how to wrap up the episode. I probably shouldn't do that. Anyway, so nobody's watching live, it looks like, but if you're watching this on YouTube, if you liked it, hit the like button. If you want to see more like it, subscribe, and if you want to be notified when I make more videos, then hit the bell. So I hope you liked this showcase, and see you in another video or a stream.